When I was first introduced to Kung Fu Panda, I was only about 10 years old. And even then I instantly fell in love with the piece. I stared at the screen and listened to what was happening. Picturesque scenery, cities that seem as if they exist in reality. The mesmerizing battle and the huge, just colossal philosophy of this creation. Kung Fu Panda is a cartoon the likes of which comes out once in a decade. The extent to which the authors have underhandedly worked on the cartoon, how much they have put into this work is truly mesmerizing. And of course, all of the above applies specifically to the first installment of Kung Fu Panda. The part that made just the most incredible impact on the world of animation and the souls of the audience. I freaking love that cartoon. As a kid, I was enthralled by the picture, the music, the fights, and the story. At a more conscious age, I began to notice more of the ideas and philosophy that make up the entire Kung Fu Panda cartoon. Master Oogway and the Strange Turtles became a real teacher for me. Po's story made a lot more sense than it did as a child. And the dissonance with Shifu made more sense to me than ever before. I have no hesitation in calling this cartoon brilliant, and today I'm going to show and tell you why. The creation of the Kung Fu Panda world took place in a really massive way. The authors made a real journey through China to create these marvelous landscapes, which are filled with the world of the cartoon. The animation for Year 8 made a splash, because looking at it 12 years later, it still looks great. But I have much more interest in the story itself, the philosophy and the characters. The whole story and essence of the first Kung Fu Panda revolves around a few of Oogway's phrases, which we'll get to shortly. In the cartoon, I would single out 3 characters on whom the main story of the piece hinges. It's definitely Po, Oogway, and Shifu. Po, naturally, acts as the main link between us and the main story in the cartoon. In Po, everyone can see themselves. He's clumsy, eats a lot, and generally doesn't do well. He has a dream. What he wants to strive for is Kung Fu. He's forced to do things he doesn't like.
Tai Lung, big fan.
In the relationship between Po and his father, one can clearly see something that is prevalent in our time. Dad wants him to make noodles, and Po wants to be associated with Kung Fu. And the way Po pretends he dreamed about noodles last night shows us how far he is from his dream. And it's the moment he neglects the noodles that he has a chance to become something he never dreamed he could be. It would seem that a fat panda is being called the greatest warrior in history. How is that even possible? It's an accident. Accidents are not random. It was Oogway's phrase that became the most memorable to every viewer of Kung Fu Panda. It was this phrase that became the quintessence of the entire cartoon. And it is one that occupies a crucial role in understanding Oogway's philosophy in the entire cartoon. In English it sounds like this: there are no accidents. There's no such thing as an accident. There is no such thing as randomness, or randomness is not random. And the thing is, Oogway doesn't just say some phrase like, accidents are not random, or, the past must be forgotten, and the like. What he means is that even if you think that what happened shouldn't have happened, that what's happening to you is an accident, you should reconsider the way you look at the world. What he is saying is that everything that happens in the world and should happen, it can't be otherwise. Any situation that happened to you, no matter how horrible it was, it had to happen, and it did. Gway says we must accept everything that seems random at first glance, and we must learn to work with what we have, because the past cannot be changed. Which is what he says in one of his conversations with Po. You're too preoccupied with what was and what will be. We must play with the sword that fate throws to us. Even if it's a fat, clumsy panda who does nothing but eat dumplings all day long. The whole Kung Fu Panda cartoon is about that. Also, the master says you have to have faith. It means that if you believe in what you have, if you believe and hope that fate has thrown you, any accident can become your destiny. And that's exactly what's happening Kung Fu Panda. Choosing Po as a dragon warrior seems unthinkable. It seems like a coincidence. And it's Shifu who shows the most frustration. He just can't believe he's been training the 5 for so many years, and the dragon warrior ends up being a fat panda who's never practiced Kung Fu in his life. It's a shock to him and he doesn't want to accept it. It seems to Shifu that everything that happens in the world depends on him. He feels like he can take out the panda and find a new dragon warrior. He feels like he can stop Tai Lung's escape. But it is by running away from fate that he meets it there. Just before his death, Oogway says the following: "A peach tree will grow from that seed. You may want an apple tree to grow, but a peach tree will. Shifu, like you and me, seems to have it all up to him every time. But that's not how it works. We are just human beings, and the world around us is moving regardless of us. All people live the same way regardless of us. If one of us dies, nothing changes in the world. If some great and rich person dies, essentially nothing will change in scale either. We think we have control, but in reality we don't. All we have is control over our body and thoughts. And that sometimes it's not complete. That's exactly what Shifu is learning. Accepting what he has and accepting what he can't change. He's learning a new way of learning to eat. Later, in turn, is also in a difficult position. Everyone wants him gone and the only one who believes in him is Ogwe. It is this faith that sustains Po in his journey. He was always trying to be like someone else. But only when he realizes that his strength is exactly who he is, only when he realizes there is no secret ingredient, does he become the strongest warrior in all of China. One subscriber even suggested the idea that Kung Fu Panda is the dawn of the idea of body positivism and accepting oneself as a well-fed human being. But I will probably refrain from commenting on this idea. The entire philosophy of Kung Fu Panda is built on the ancient thoughts of our ancestors, Stoics, Buddhists, Taoists and others. That wisdom wafts from every aspect of this wonderful cartoon. For me, it will probably forever be a companion piece in my life. The entire cartoon did an incredible job of quality. It is difficult to determine what gigantic labor the authors put into the creation of the cartoon. Personally, I just love Eastern wisdom and culture and stuff. And that is exactly what is the most important aspect of the Kung Fu Panda universe. The creators were inspired by the cartoons of Hayao Miyazaki, and that's why the world, cities and nature in this world seem so alive. Miyazaki was perfectly capable of conveying this in his paintings, which we'll talk about in one of my next videos, by the way. And of course, Kung Fu Panda wouldn't be Kung Fu Panda without one man, namely Jack Black, who is literally Po. He and the panda are almost the same person. It was Jack who gave the panda all the nitty-gritty we're used to. Funny phrases, clumsy movements, a certain casualness, and so on. In Russian, War of the Dragon was played by Mikhail Galustian, and I think he did well. And personally, I now have a hard time watching Kung Fu Panda in any voiceover other than Russian. Also tried and translators who localized phrases from the original to Russian in a very interesting way. Who the hell are you, huh? What can you do? You're a nobody, okay? Did you hurt my friend? This cartoon is suitable for absolutely all ages, I would say. It can be included without any problems for the youngest, adults and even the elderly. And I'm sure it will be equally interesting for each of them. This is largely explained by the approach the authors took in creating the cartoon. They followed in the footsteps of Avatar Legend Bunga by adding some funny jokes, fights, while making the cartoon fulfilling and interesting for adult viewers. And it's all anchored by the beautiful animation and music that made Kung Fu Panda as we know it now. In this video I intentionally did not SDR a Givalia second and third cartoons, because they, as I think, are not as thoughtful and interesting as the first part. They have their pros, but I think their cons outweigh the good aspects. But if there's a lot of activity on this video, I'll realize you're interested and make a video about the second and third part problems. I have been approaching this clip for a very long time. I've rewritten the snare to it countless times. I tried to make it as good as possible, but it certainly didn't turn out exactly as I originally intended. So if you liked it and you want more videos like this, then please give a like and write some comment to promote it.